will never condone or associate with his conduct and behavior on the internet. I let him know men don't argue and beef behind a mic on the internet. Real men move in silence.
He's not no tough guy, like, he's a rapper. So just because you did whatever you did in the streets, you never did nothing. You never was none of that. You was a dude that was doing your little ones and twos, and you became a rapper.
You know, I have the resilience to go against anybody. Like, there's nobody that's doing that. Those are the guys that you would choose not to go against at that point. It's in the environment, and it's not him individually, because everybody's greater in their absence than they are in their presence. His aura is stronger than he is.
I know they had to have something to do with it, and they come to find out that the dudes who did it was working for Murder Inc.
It's been 25 years, and the question that's been hanging in the air since 2000 has always been, who shot 50 Cent? For over 2 decades, we've only had rumors, speculation, and 50's own version of events. But now Supreme McGriff, the man many have linked to that hit, is finally breaking his silence from prison. But this isn't some closure moment. McGriff is talking now for a reason, and it's not because he feels guilty, it's about timing. It's about the narrative he wants to control.
We different. We are masters of self-defense. If you ain't talking about positivity or growth and goals, keep your mouth shut. That goes for everybody.
50 Cent recently opened up about surviving the day that almost ended everything. May 24, 2000. A shooting in Jamaica, Queens left him hit 9 times and fighting for his life. Looking back, he says that moment didn't change him. It rebuilt him. It's what pushed him from the streets into the global spotlight. 50 talked about his mindset right after the incident, and he admitted music wasn't even on his radar at first, and all he thought about was survival, not fame.
Music in 96, 2000, about to release an album. What happens?
Oh, but I was shot.
9 times?
Yeah.
And the album goes by and you're fighting for survival.
Yeah, and it became a part of, it shifted my concept.
Back then, 50 wasn't just fighting to recover. He was fighting to stay relevant. The industry wanted nothing to do with him. Labels, bad business, and doors that were opened suddenly slammed shut. So he built his own lane. With wounds still healing across his face, chest, legs, and hands, he went underground and turned G Unit into a movement. And within 2 years, his grind paid off. Eminem and Shady Records came calling. And in 2003, Get Rich or Die Tryin' dropped. And that's when everything changed. The same man the industry once blackballed was now the biggest name in rap.
The numbers, Get Rich or Die Tryin'. We had a short first week, right? And it came back. It was like 830-something thousand records. And I was like, and then we didn't have the decrease that you would have. That meant they undershipped it because there wouldn't be the 60% or that 30% decrease that would be there for every album wasn't there because the following week it came in with a whole nother 800-something thousand. I was on a bus, I was riding, I remember I was like, this is never gonna feel like this again. I knew it. I'm by myself. And back at the bus we was riding out, and I said, this is never gonna feel like this again. And I knew to really enjoy the moment.
But for all the fame and fortune that came after the case still remains officially unsolved to this day, and there just have been so many suspects. You see, in the early 2000s, 50 Cent was an underground force. He was making noise with mixtapes, but nobody knew he was about to explode. Enter Murder Inc. Irv Gotti, Ja Rule, Ashanti, and the whole crew was running the game. But there was something about 50 that rubbed Irv and Ja the wrong way. And at the time, the industry was still feeling the effects of the East Coast-West Coast drama, even though that had technically slowed down. And then in 1999, Ja was robbed in Southside Jamaica, not by 50 himself, but by someone from his circle. At the time, Ja was Murder Inc.'s rising star, and 50 was just starting to get hype in New York. That same year, the tension spilled onto Wax. 50 dropped Your Life's on the Line, taking direct shots at Ja Rule. And things only got worse after that. The following year, 50 and Ja ran into each other at a nightclub in Atlanta. Words were exchanged, fists followed, and the two camps officially became enemies. Now fast forward to March 2000 and that infamous brawl at the Hit Factory studio in New York. Members of G Unit and Murder Inc. clashed, and 50 ended up getting stabbed during the fight. Murder Inc. rapper Black Child later admitted to it, but he said he was just defending himself because he saw someone pulling out a piece. After that, Irv and Ja claimed that 50 filed a protective order against them because of the stabbing, and they pushed that story for years. But court records later showed that 50 never filed for that protective order. The NYPD issued it automatically. And then, just weeks after the stabbing incident in May 2000, 50 was hit 9 times while sitting in front of his grandmother's house in Queens. It was a calculated move, and it nearly ended his life. But what's weird about this is that despite the fact that 50 lived to tell the story, the details of the attack have always been confusing. 50's version of is legendary. He says he was ambushed in broad daylight, hit 9 times, and somehow walked away with a new level of toughness. His whole persona became about surviving against all odds. A federal investigation later linked Queens kingpin Kenneth Supreme McGriff to the incident, and he allegedly plotted this in retaliation for 50's song Ghetto Quran, where McGriff's name was mentioned directly. McGriff was also a close associate of Irv Gotti, and their connection ran deep. In 2003, Irv and his brother Chris Gotti were indicted on federal charges for allegedly laundering McGriff's dirty money through Murder Inc. The case made headlines, but both brothers were acquitted in 2005.
Tonight, music mogul Irv Gotti got a lift from his attorneys and a verdict that found him not guilty on all counts.
Me and my brother never did anything. We never did anything. Only thing we was guilty of is being friends with and knowing somebody who was from our neighbor.
After the verdict, the prosecutors walked out of the courthouse and would only say this.
We respect the verdict.
It was a terse statement in contrast to the celebratory mood of Irv Gotti and rap star Ja Rule.
Get ready, we're coming, the music is coming. Go to the studio right now, you understand?
But McGriff wasn't as lucky as Irv. In 2007, he was charged in a separate case and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for a double higher substance trafficking and racketeering. But despite the rumors and street talk, neither McGriff nor anyone tied to Murder Inc. was ever charged in connection with 50 Cent's. 50 always claimed it was a calculated hit, but McGriff never spoke on it. He stayed silent for years. Now, was he keeping quiet out of loyalty, or was it just part of the game? Well, fast forward 25 years, and out of nowhere, McGriff decides to speak out. After years of silence, he decided to open his mouth. Not to confess, but to tell his son, Kenneth McGriff Jr., to keep his mouth shut. This happened after Kenneth Jr. called out 50 Cent publicly, accusing him of building his success off his father's legacy and saying the McGriff family deserves royalties for it. But during an appearance on Ebro in the Morning, 50 brushed off the idea completely and said no one outside of the 5 boroughs even knows who Supreme McGriff is. But that comment didn't sit well with McGriff Jr., and he fired back on Instagram saying, "How can you say Preem is not the reason for your success? Your storyline in the industry was guy gets shot 9 times, he lives. That's like a movie script. So of course people are going to buy into your story. You were the underdog, but you were scared of them. You were scared of Jimmy, you were scared of my pops, you were scared of Lil' Kim's baby father. You were talking nobody knows Preem outside of the 5 boroughs. But when I go to different states, I get the red carpet. Preem and Jimmy Henchman are a major part of your story, bro. They helped catapult you to the next thing because your songs is trash. And that issue did with Jam Master Jay, that was boo-boo. You really mad because Preem wouldn't F with you." McGriff Jr. also added in the caption, "I can't even tag this clown because he blocked, but if Eminem and Dre didn't sign you, absolutely nobody would care about anything you did. The name of your album is called Get Rich or Die Trying. I never met somebody who bragged about getting hit. You need to thank Preem, Murder Inc., and Jimmy Henchman for making your storyline. You owe us 30% of all royalties, you donkey." Ebro didn't even ask him anything about Preem. That man lived rent-free. But McGriff Jr. didn't stop there. He later went off on 50 in an interview, calling him weak and saying he was never a street dude.
He's not no tough guy. Like, he's a rapper. So just because you did whatever you did in the streets, you never did nothing. You never was none of that. You was a dude that was doing your little 1s and 2s, and you became a rapper.
And then after Irv Gotti passed earlier this year, McGriff Jr. again came for 50, blasting him for mocking Irv's death. But that's when the OG McGriff decided to step in and check his son, telling him to stop with the online back and forth and keep his mouth shut.
Due to recent events, the elevation to a place of peace and rest for my brother and friend, Irv Gotti, and the buffoonish display of my son, Kyle Robinson, I am forced to make a public statement in defense of Irv and his family. I do not indulge in idle chit-chat. When I speak, I have something to say. Kyle Robinson does not speak for Irv or Irv's family, nor does he speak for me or my nephew, Gerald Prince Miller. I was disgusted when I heard about the things he said as far as representing Irv. I let him know men don't argue and beef behind a mic on the internet. Real men move in silence. He had a choice, me or the net. He made his choice. And until he forsakes the clown show, which is the internet, I will never speak or associate with him, especially when he makes veiled threats talking about we. Who is we? Prince and myself do not promote threats of violence. We different. We are masters of self-defense. If you ain't talking about positivity or growth and goals, keep your mouth shut.
So after all these years, we finally hear McGriff's voice, but it's far from the reveal we expected. He didn't confess to the shooting. He didn't even admit to anything. Instead, this is about power, legacy, and the control of a story that's always been bigger than the truth. But no matter who pulled the trigger, the aftermath is what really matters. For 50, getting shot was the ultimate story of survival. It became the backbone of his career. That shooting gave him the fuel to create Get Rich or Die Tryin', one of the most iconic albums in rap history. The man had 9 lives, and the world was watching him turn that near-death experience into a massive empire. Now let me know what you think about Supreme McGriff's alleged involvement in the shooting. Do you believe the shooting was strictly retaliation over Ghetto Quran, or is there more to the story? Drop your thoughts below, and don't miss out on this next story.